Good morning to everyone.
Hi, it's been a while.
Morning.
Missed you last week.
I'm still eating the leftovers.
Good. Yeah, yeah. I'd hope the rest was needed and were able to use the day off for enjoying yourself. So
Yeah.
not having to get up so early. Okay, we're just letting a few more people in before we actually start. Hi. Hmm. Nearly all here.
Hi, Susan.
Morning.
Hi. Okay, there we go. I think we can start. So, module 6. We have 2 more sessions to go. I'm looking forward to them. We're starting to move out of that self-compassion and that self in general. And how do we pair that? How do we balance that with the outer world? So, Anna, would you like to?
Yes. Thank you so much. I was just letting some people in from the waiting room. So, again, welcome everybody. It's so great to see you again. And as Merida said, we're moving on today to Module 6, which is expanding our circle of concern. And I think this puts us right at the last leg of all that we're going to be wrapping up and uncovering before we finish CBCT. So, before we do that, as always, we're going to spend a few minutes doing a check-in. Merida, I might ask you to make the breakout rooms while I'm leading us into our first couple of slides for the day. So, as always, we'd like to go over our group resilience agreements. Merida and I thought we'd get this out of the way right in the beginning because we do have an exciting breakout room planned for our check-in for today. So, just a quick recap of our agreements, which, of course, confidentiality, commitment to be present as much as possible, really trying to share the time amongst all of us. So, that's putting in thought to our listening, our speaking, punctuality, respect, and really taking that space for gathering thoughts before answering a question and perhaps asking one too. And of course, as always, all questions are welcome. So if there is anything that's unclear or any thoughts or anything you would like to share, please feel free to do so. And before we move into our check-in question for the day, we're going to do a very quick settling practice, and we're hoping that you used the week to get familiar with the CBCT app, which has guided reflective practices, meditation practices, as well as guiding yourself through these wonderful settling moments that we have uncovered from the first 3 modules. So if you're comfortable to participate in a settling moment right now, we invite you to do so. If you're not feeling like participating, of course, this is completely optional, but I am going to guide you just for about 2 to 3 minutes with a very quick settling, just to get us a little oriented, reoriented into this space. So with that, I invite you to take a few deep breaths. And as you're taking in your deep breaths, if you're able to, we invite you to pay attention to your bodily sensations. And if you're able to, bring to mind a nurturing moment. perhaps one that you've been cultivating across these last couple of weeks, or even a new one if that feels comfortable today. And as always, when you're trying to recall your nurturing moment, it's always helpful to recall as many details as possible of the nurturing moment, perhaps what the sounds were like, the taste was like, or the smells, or purely just what your eyes were taking in at that moment, just so we can really immerse ourselves into that settling practice through this nurturing moment as best as possible. And as we're recalling our nurturing moment, perhaps we can again pay some attention if there are any shifts in our body sensations at the moment. As we're coming to a close, I invite you to take a few more deep breaths and welcome you back into the space. And please feel free, as always, to jump into recalling a nurturing moment whenever you might feel the need to resettle or ground yourselves, as we say, throughout today's session. And with that, we're going to move ahead to our check-in. And as mentioned earlier, we will be going into breakout rooms. And I think Merida and I both want to say that our last session, Module 5, we did have a little bit of an issue with the time. So we weren't really able to spend as much time as we liked on this one particular slide, which was really pertaining to our self-agency and how we make that visible. And I know that we did have a chance to show it on the screen before we wrapped up for the day, but this is a nice connector, I think, of reminding us of what we learned through the 2 modules of self-compassion. And these are some affirming reappraisals that we see in both modules 4 and 5 of self-compassion. And I'm hoping that everybody who was here last time at least remembers this slide. If not, then I'm happy to read out the 7 reappraisals that we have on the slide. So they go with: I am not alone, I am not a failure, I am not superhuman, I can find growth in challenges, I can connect to my values through adversity, I can connect with others through our shared struggles, and I can make a difference. And of course, we will be doing a quick recap of Module 5, but for those of you who were with us about 2 weeks ago, you'll remember that what we were really trying to do is find that meaning in our vulnerabilities. And with that, of course, comes a deeper and some would say a greater understanding of the challenges that we face, and us really reappraising those challenges as a natural part of our life, and an ebb and a flow of sometimes our greatest struggles, but finding meaning in those struggles when it's possible. Of course, it may not always be, but we look at these self-compassion reappraisals. And what we really want to do here for our check-in is see if there is a current situation perhaps in your life where you could pick up 1 or 2 or perhaps even 3 of these self-compassion reappraisals and speak those to your inner self for something that you perhaps are going through, that you perceive as a challenge or a struggle. And we'll let you take about a minute to contextualize that for what you're going through right now. Or it could also be an imagined situation or something that happened in the past where perhaps if one of these 7 self-compassion reappraisal statements would have benefited you. hopefully we've been able to land on at least one, and if not one, then perhaps more than one. And what we're going to really do, and I know Merida has put this into the chat, so we're going to go into breakout rooms just to share our thoughts on perhaps if we find meaning in these self-compassion appraisals. And as the question in the chat says, in what ways could these perspectives, as you are able to make them visible, foster a healthier and more positive outcome? And as always, you're welcome to share beyond the question as well. And if you're not comfortable sharing your specific context or example, please know that you don't have to. The idea, of course, is just to focus on what the real self-compassion that we're being able to find through our self-agency with these reappraisals is really getting at in the context of CBCT. So, Merida, are we ready with our breakout rooms? Perfect. Okay. And do we have about, are we doing groups of 2?
Yes.
So
Yeah, so groups
how are we
of
for
2.
time?
We can do 3 minutes each. Is that too
Perfect.
long? I think this is a deep question, so let's see how far they go.
It-
3 questions, 3 minutes each. Okay. Great. So that'll open the rooms. Okay. Forget. Oh, nice to see you all. Yeah, those breakout rooms are always slightly intended, at least, to be invigorating and bring you to the present moment together with all of your colleagues here. A couple of people are having difficulties connecting, so they come in and out, and weren't able to join the breakout rooms, but I think we solved it for everyone, and everyone was with somebody. And would anyone like to briefly share an aha moment or something they realized about this week, or about the chat they had with their partners? Did any questions arise?
I can go.
Oh, Michelle, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so it's it's I can read this list and it's like, oh yes, that's nice, that's comforting, but being able to talk to somebody else and actually say, choose a couple and say them out loud and hear them for myself, but share them with another person, so powerful, and such a different, I mean, it lands much stronger for me.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Anyone else? So Marianne, self-compassion with my body, thank you.
I also just wanted to say how interesting these are, and I think whichever one any of us choose, our partner could totally relate with it. At least that was in our group. It was like these are so I think common to all of us. It's a good list.
Yeah. Does anyone find any one of them more challenging than another?
No, I would say it's a beautiful list. And I had to miss the end of the last meeting, but I think I could see how certain ones apply in certain situations, and then certain ones you would lean on in other situations. So I think they're all really relatable.
Very good. Thank you. Okay.
I just want to add that I think there are a lot that go together. So if you're working with one and other ones kind of come in to the ideas as well. But I would
Yeah.
agree with the person who said they can relate because they're very universal. So it's um, one story builds on, yeah, I have a similar experience with something like that. So I thought in that way it was it was very interesting.
Mhm. Great. Okay. Do we move on? Shall I share screen? Hello. Thank you, Anna. Okay. So these are the sustaining capabilities that we actually saw in the last module. This once again is just to bring you back to where we were standing when we left off, and since it was 2 weeks ago, a slight revision is always useful, so we can continue with a fresh kind of idea, a fresh mind, without the worry of, oh, I missed anything or I've forgotten something. And what we did was really explore that, finding the meaning in our vulnerabilities as we reflected on that personal growth and checked into what the deeper connection to our values could be and the greater empathies for others that can emerge from the challenges we face. And it is with these insights that we considered the fact that we're not helpless. There's always something we can do, and there's always a tool we can recur back to from any of those modules that we've visited from the very beginning. So and that's kind of like the magic of this of this course, is that we'll find these tools ever so useful. You don't have to carry them written down in your pocket. You actually start to embody them. Hopefully by now you've gotten into that rhythm where those aha moments are falling more and more, and you're becoming more aware of how you can use these. We also saw that as self-agency increases, so does our ability to respond to the challenges of life with greater resilience. And I will read out, because I know some people prefer to hear rather than read, these 5 enduring capabilities. And if there is any question, maybe at the end, we can just go back through them and answer whatever we can about the question. But so the first one would be sustaining that awareness that we can grow and learn from our mistakes and setbacks. And the second one is using adversity as a way to clarify our core values and purpose. The third one is enhancing the sensitivity and compassion for others who share our experiences of vulnerability. And finally, strengthening self-agency and fostering confidence in our ability to alleviate our distress. I think after sessions 4 and 5, at least for me, bring together what self-compassion is all about. And I start to understand how we find that the vulnerability, which is kind of any setback, can be seen as a vulnerability. But when we learn that we can find a new meaning and give it new significance, and we can learn from those, for me, that was very, very valuable. And I hope any of those enduring capabilities that we've just talked about really does make an impact in you and help you throughout your life now to continue with a little bit more confidence, with a little bit more wisdom, that nothing is permanent, nothing stays the same, because we can change it. Mhm. Any questions about this so far? Okay. Thank you. Very well. Yes, so this is a reminder of where we're at. We have 2 more sessions to go. So this is, and we've just been through all of that was related to ourself and to becoming stronger, to enhancing that self-awareness. Starting, once that awareness happens, some things that we become aware of might not be so pretty or nice or kind. So how do we start to cultivate that self-compassion. And so we went through the 2 sessions. I won't go through them again, but now we're in a position to start expanding our circle of concern. And I think it's kind of a natural thing. Oh, so if this happens to me, that's one way. I understand it's starting to happen to others as well. And we do have a natural tendency to feel concern for those we feel close to, but those with whom we identify and being like us. But sometimes we do. What happens when they're not like us, when people are different? So in this module, we're going to start to cultivate that ability to identify with a widening in group of as we move into this module of individuals, and that we'll review how. Well, we'll learn about our common shared reality, and we'll promote these feelings of connection further and further beyond. Mhm. Mhm. And the first activity, we'll start out with an activity so that we understand what this is all about. And this is actually a really nice activity that goes with that goes as a kind of a treasure, a present. It comes with beautiful insights at the end of how we can start to view our common humanity. I see there's some activity in the chat. Is it? Yeah, thank you, Lydia. Yes, that is true. Self-compassion with the body, yes, and then our body does a lot for us, and we don't remember that it needs compassion as well. Yeah. And also we need to become really, really aware of what's happening in our body. Yeah, we don't remember that it needs compassion. There's this a one nighttime children's book about this, where it's about thanking all the body of everything it's done during the day. That's lovely. Thank you. So before moving on, I'll kind of describe what this activity is about. And it's about finding things that we do have in common and things that we don't have in common, and how many people in this group have those things in common with us. So I'll be calling out different ways to different situations, and our hand if we have that, if we agree with that kind of. And we did right here describe here who the how to raise your hands. So if anybody has a doubt about it, it's down below in the reactions, which have now changed, and I don't have that emoji. I have a heart in my reactions. But when we click on that, one of the features there is raise hand. And so I'll raise mine, and that brings me to the top. So every time that I describe one of those situations, I'm going to be asking some questions about you, and we'll lift our hand if we agree with that. And I might have left out. So yeah, that's basically what we're going to be doing. And maybe you can fill me in just a little bit if I missed out anything.
I don't think you did,
Feels
Merida.
I'm still feeling a bit foggy brained.
It's early for you, yes. But yes, I think Merida is just going to read out a few statements, and then if you identify with those statements, then we'll do the raise hand. And if you can't find it on Zoom, you can feel free to raise your physical hand too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you have that open?
The which one? Sorry,
The
Merida?
activity, this activity, I'll open it. That's okay. I just have.
I can pull it up if it's hard to find.
I got it here. It's okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. I had a terrible nightmare last night about being late for this lesson.
Oh,
And I was trying to find my computer and I couldn't find the computer, and then I couldn't find my cell phone to let you know, Anu.
oh my goodness.
And here
So you're human too, huh?
we are. I am
But not superhuman, right?
not human. Super. Okay, just a second. Here we are. Right, there we go. Okay, so this activity, it is in the guidebook, and it's based on an activity that was carried out in a group in person. And what people would do is they would step in and they would step out according to how they felt. And I think you may have seen that video, those of us that are kind of in this kind of sector doing this kind of work. We may have already seen it, but and we're not going to show that video. But so the instructor begins by drawing the circle on the floor and asking participants to stand around it. And then he starts saying, everyone who has a sister, please step into the circle. So when I that kind of an instruction, what you're going to do is you're going to raise your hand. So maybe we can practice with that. Thank you for your patience with me just now. So, so everybody that has a sister in this group, maybe you can all raise your hand. And I have a sister, so I should raise mine. There you go. And let's just take a second to take a look at, so now we know who doesn't have a sister as well. Yeah. Okay. And so I'm just going to proceed with different kinds of questions like this, so we can see who in this group it's similar to us in what different ways. So the next question would be, for example, now step in the circle if you love coffee. So raise your hands if you love coffee. That's a lot of us that love coffee. Very good. Okay, so let's continue with different kinds of questions. So let's raise our hands, or raise your hands, if you can speak more than one language. That's nice. I should raise mine as well. Yeah. Okay. And we can bring our hands, lower our hands now. And now let's raise your hands, or raise our hands. Who can play a musical instrument? Oh, lucky you. So unless the recorder is considered an instrument when I was a little girl, I think that's all I can play. Okay. And those of you who belong to a religious group, beautiful. Wonderful. You can lower your hands now. Nice to see those hands raising. And then raise your hands if you've ever gotten angry. Yeah. You see how that changes things. Yeah. And have you ever felt misunderstood? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And have you ever made a mistake and felt regret? Yeah. And do you have a strength or a skill of any kind? There's more of us, right? Yes. Have you ever wanted to feel safe, protected, and secure? Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you ever wanted to be happy and would like to avoid suffering? Yes, of course. Yes, yes. So what this comes to show us now, I believe, I'm sure that you will be able to tell me better than than I can explain. Have you noticed any difference between the first set of questions and the second? I remember the first questions were things like, do you like coffee? Do you have a sister? And how it was maybe I think about half of us liked coffee and 7 of us had a sister and the rest didn't.
I think the first set of things are what makes us unique or individuals, and the second set of things are those that are universal, that we can connect on and understand that others feel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. How would you relate this to common humanity then? And it's very tied into that question we just had. Morgana, is your hand still raised because you have the answer? Oh, okay. And Ed, your hand is still raised. Okay. So can you see how this ties into common humanity and to finding those things that we have in common, how easy it is? And does it help you feel a bit more of that of compassion towards other people? When you look into that common humanity, what were the feelings? What were, going back to the bodily sensations? Could you feel a difference between when you saw when you recalled that we have in common those emotional, that more emotional part than to I call it the having in a material way, and the feelings, when there's a lot of common shared feelings rather than things. Barry, please.
I did an interesting exercise that's similar to stepping in and out of the circle with another group. Um, and I did it both as a facilitator and as a participant. And it was, they gave you a story and then they asked you how you'd react to that. In other words, would you jump up and take the conflict or would you stay in the back? And when I was a participant, I stayed way in the back. And when I was a facilitator, I had a person that was, I mean, he was almost nose to nose with me. So I got to feel the discomfort of both of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further insights? Maureen? Uh-huh.
I think too, when we see someone, that is a experience where we're noticing probably differences or what makes that person unique. And if we remind ourselves that those differences are just things like having a sister or not having a sister, but that our feelings are universal and the same, that can really drive connection.
Mhm. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, that definitely is one of the insights. Jenna?
Um, I've been thinking a lot about the impact that like travel has had in my life and common humanity, and it just feels very alive as you ask about how does that relate when you have an abstract idea of others in your mind and then you go and you see them and it just becomes so much more real, their common humanity. So I found it very helpful to widen my circle through travel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I feel very much like that as well. Having been always been the foreigner everywhere I go. Yeah. Thank you. Kamala?
Um, I think those first things are so much preferences. Whether you like coffee or not, or situational, conditional things like whether you have a sister or a large family. But the emotions digs into something of our motives. And I think almost things that we're not necessarily conscious of all the time. And I think that's helpful to remember that we're all motivated to make our families happier, and we're all motivated by that feeling of security, and we all respond to the feeling of security. And I feel like that's really important. That's the level where I need to be able to see those who I disagree with, especially that we're coming from that that they're coming from a good place too, even if I don't agree with their opinion or choices.
Mhm. Beautiful. Yeah. And that so much relates to this main goal now of compassion training, that is to expand as much as we possibly can that circle of concern, and how important it is that we find ways of connecting genuinely with a broader range of individuals. And I think it's worth really noting that as humans, we naturally feel a connection to those that are similar to us. And that will spark, no, it will trigger that connection somehow. And these differences can actually, the differences we have seen in the world now can actually really cause a lot of havoc, and in some kinds, in extreme cases, war, no? And so how important it is really to identify with anyone, and we can identify with anyone on that basis of the common humanity. And noting that we all do share physical needs for food, water, and sleep, we also share the psychological needs for belonging, learning, and purpose. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this story here, but there's a story of the two lines in the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, where the soldiers were giving soup out to the children that they'd found in a concentration camp. And there was one line was a soup, was they were giving the soup out, and the soup and finished in one of the lines. And the soldier that was handing out the soup was so upset and didn't know really what to do. And so he started to hug the kids in that line. And some of the kids from the other line actually moved to this line to get a hug. And so that kind of nurturing thing about our common humanity, what our needs are, that need for belonging, for feeling that connection, and 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 going beyond that. No, it can be really deep and set us, on a very different open trail. And each of us deeply value our own well-being, and we're committed to avoiding that illness and the loss and the setbacks, but bringing our attention to that, expanding our circle of concern, that deeper common humanity will give us the opportunity to really, hopefully, identify and connect with an ever-widening group of individuals. And I think we have time, don't we, Anum, to watch the next video? Is there anything else that you would like to add, Anum?
No, thank you, Merida. I just want to say that these reflections in the chat and what everybody shared is so deeply touching. And I think this module in particular, at least for me, it always brings out more of an emotional side, because I think it brings to light, for example, what Kamala just said as well, that you may not always have to agree with somebody, but where is the line in seeing them as equal to you in the sense of shared humanity? So I think we are going to touch upon that a little later as well. But just because you brought it up, Kamala, I think it's also important to note that when we're striving to cultivate that common humanity, it does not always mean that we're striving to agree with others or put others in a light of deep acceptance and kindness and love. But sometimes that is unfortunately not possible in the world that we live in. But what is possible, as Merida is saying, and as we can see through the story of the soldier in World War II and this activity at a deeper level, is that we can see each other as human beings and as equals. And for the situations that it can shift our perspective and awareness for an opening the door of compassion feeling, then that is really, I think, a wonder of the human mind and heart. So yes, so I think we do have time for the video, Merida, and we can go into our break right after that. And if you could be so kind as to share your screen, Merida, and show the video. While Merida is pulling it up, this is a fantastic video. It's a part of a series, and this is just one of many, but this is the one that feels, I think, most aligned with this module. And we'll drop the link into the chat for those of you who would like to keep it. I think it's about 5 minutes, which will lead us right into our break.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How that works. And I trust you're all seeing that.
Yes, we can see it.
And
don't know if we can hear it just yet. I don't think we have the sound yet, Merida.
Actually, we can't hear you either, Marita. You're talking, but we can't hear you.
I can try to share it, Merida. Let me pull. Okay.
English. My family have served and we've defended this country and we've been to war for this country.
I'm really patriotic about Bangladesh.
Well, I am 100% Icelandic, yeah, definitely.
This is a Kurdish wedding with my mom in the traditional Kurdish clothes.
We're just proud black, so that's it.
Yeah, I think we are probably the best country in the world, if I'm honest.
Think about other countries and other nationalities in the world. Are there any that you don't feel you get on with well, or you won't like particularly?
Germany. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Germans.
You might think they're a little bit.
Particularly India and Pakistan, probably because of the whole, the conflict.
Because I have this side of me that's like, that hates Turkish people. Not people, but the government. But French.
No. We're just the best, it's just fact.
I'm more important than you. I don't know you, but in my opinion, I am strong and I am more important than a lot of people.
How would you feel about taking a journey based on your DNA?
Yeah, I feel very intrigued.
What could you possibly tell me that I don't know?
So do you know how DNA works?
So you get half from mum and half from dad, so 50% from each of them, and they get 50% from their parents, and back and back and back. And all those little bits of your ancestor, they filter down to make you, you. I need you to spit in this tube for me. You spit up to the little black line.
That's a lot of spit.
Right, the story of you is in that tube. What's it gonna tell me?
It's gonna be, oh yeah, you're French, and wait, your grandparents are French, and wait.
100% Bengali.
Solid Iraqi.
I'm Cuban.
You're gonna tell me that I'm English? Like I've told you.
Jay, can you come down and join us?
I'm a little bit nervous, I have to say.
So you ready to find out your results? Will you read it out to us, please?
Wow, look at me.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Shit, I didn't expect that.
All of them.
Whoa. No. No.
Caucasus, which was Turkish?
Yeah.
Eastern Europe, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece.
I'm 32% British.
What? Great Britain, 30%. Can we 5% German?
I'm Irish.
Yeah.
So I'm a Muslim Jew.
Great Britain, 11%. Are you sure these results are mine?
Eastern Europe?
Iceland has definitely moved closer to Europe now.
I'm gonna go a bit far right now, but this should be compulsory. There would be no such thing as like extremism in the world if people knew their heritage like that. Like, who would be stupid enough to think of such thing as like a pure race?
In a way, we're all kind of cousins, in a broad sense. In a much more direct sense, you have a cousin in this room. Turn around and guess who it is. Wash?
Yeah. What's that?
Why don't you come down here and meet your cousin?
Good. This is the
Did you know that?
I didn't know I did. This is like, my heart's pounding right now, I swear to God. We met.
I'm Jay from everywhere, but whatever it is.
I'm a real man of the world.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you.
So would you like to travel to all of these places?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Mandita, we can't hear you if you're talking. That was a beautiful video, and I can see so many hearts and these wonderful comments in the chat. So we have shared the link, but I think it's pretty clear why this particular video ties in so well with Module 6 and everything that we just discussed about common humanity and so much more that meets the eye when we dig a little deeper, and quite literally so for the individuals in this group of the DNA test that they did. And I think with that, we're right at the hour. So before we go into a quick break, if anybody would like to share any reflections, just so we allow space for any questions or reflections from that video, and then we can go into a quick 5-minute break.
Harry.
Just wow. I watch Roots a lot on PBS, and I've seen this happen, and it's mind blowing.
It certainly is. Yes, absolutely. Especially the two that end up being cousins in the same room.
Amazing. Okay. So if there's no other comments, questions, I think we can take our bio break and stretch just a little so that we can continue into this very heartwarming kind of session. Sorry?
I
You
think
can't
we
hear
can
me?
do No, I can hear you. I'm saying we can do a quick 5-minute break. I think we have time for that. Yeah, perfect. Hey, hopefully we have everyone back. All right. I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So this wonderful video that we just watched, which, as I said, this module just brings out so many emotions, and I think that in itself is a form of common humanity, is feeling that resonance with others that we saw in the video, and just sparking something inside of us all for our own common humanity with others. So, in that same spirit, we're going to speak just a little bit about what we've been referring to many times in this module, which is our in group. And I know we've already made reference to it many times, but just for a little bit of definition purposes and clarity, our in group can be defined as a group or individuals that we see as similar to ourselves. And a great definition of that can be gender, it can be race. So often we might walk into a room. So I'll speak from the I for myself as a woman. I may walk into a room, and if I spot 3 women amongst a room full of other genders, I might subconsciously think that those other 3 women are my in group because I share that same identification of gender with them. And similarly, we've seen, as Merida said as well, there are so many examples in the world of the us and them concept. And in some places, while it can be very beneficial, and it is certainly an evolutionary trait within ourselves from a biological and neuroscientific perspective, that as human beings, we have somehow been able to distinguish who fit into our in group for safety or some kind of protection versus who is in our out group. However, there has, historically speaking, been, of course, a very dangerous tipping point, and that has been the fundamental cause of so many conflicts and disputes and so many wars, many of which we are continuing to bear witness to in this very moment. And what's very interesting when we think about it from the perspective of compassion, we speak about something called an in-group bias. And that really is speaking to how, when we think of our in-group, of course, as we noted right before, we may be just a little more favorable to those who we believe are in our in-group. So for my example, I may walk into a room and I may feel a little more aligned or attuned or safe with the other women in that room because I believe those are people in my in group. However, that bias is what could very easily tip to a point of a lot of discontent in situations, again, as we've seen in the world, where we have an us and them mentality that is very pervasive, very much so in I think all parts of the world. But what's very interesting here is that you'll see on the screen, and there is a link as well, and we'd be happy to share it in the chat as well, that there was a study done. And for those of you who are familiar with football or soccer, as it's referred to in North America, where most of you are joining us from. There is a team called Manchester United. I'm assuming everybody here is familiar with them. If not, they're a very famous team, and they play for the I think it's the English Premier League, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a football person, so I might not have the best generalizing category of that one. But the study was done by a psychologist. And in the study, what they did was they asked Manchester United fans to fill out a survey on how much they loved their team and their enthusiasm for Manchester United, and how many games they visited and how much they cheer and how they cheer, really bringing out their kinship with those who support Manchester United. And after they filled out this survey and expressed their excitement and their loyalty to the team, they were sent on a walkway, and there was an individual there who seemed to be a little injured. And the person was wearing, well, what is seen as a rival team, which is Liverpool. Again, if you're not familiar with any of these names, that's absolutely fine. The idea is that they are a rival team of Manchester United. So they see somebody who is a little injured and on the floor wearing a Liverpool jersey, and somebody who is wearing a Manchester United jersey. And most of the people, and I think the statistics are a little over 50%, that went and helped the individual wearing the Manchester United jersey, and very few people helped both individuals. And the second round of survey that was done was taking out the categories or the identification of the team, and the questions on the survey were, how much do you love the sport football or soccer? And all of these fans, they expressed how much they love soccer, they love football, they're so loyal to the game, they've watched X number of games, which one was their favorite memory, what they recall. And then that group was sent again on a pathway where they saw the same people, and this time everybody, most of the people, helped both individuals. And I think what the idea behind this study really is that in the example where they just spoke about the sport, they recognized somebody wearing, even if they were wearing a rival team jersey, they still recognized that overall, this person also loves football or soccer as much as they do. And I think this whole survey study really brings out how we can expand that in group when we're able to focus on the larger elements of what we might find as common within us. And it's a wonderful example, and you can read more about it. It is in the CBCT guidebook. And I think what it's really asking us in terms of expanding our circle of concern in Module 6 to do is that there might be a chance that people who we feel are opposing us or are our enemies, we might have something in common at the end of the day that we can relate to. And of course, I would like to preface that all examples are tried to that are given are usually a little lighter. So when we're talking about sports, it's always very easy to be able to attune to that because it's sports, and there's so many people who have this deep loyalty to a particular kind of sport. But when we shift that narrative into something a little more painful, I would say, which is our next slide, which I'm going to go to, and then perhaps we can open up for some discussion, which is the anchoring story in Module 6. Again, it's in the guidebook, but I'd love to share my take on it with you, which is two individuals, two men and this is a real story, and I think they've tried to keep their identity disclosed, so we'll keep it a little general, but in a region that is heavily contested in terms of land and conflict. There are two families on opposing sides of the conflict, and this was a number of years ago that they both lost their loved ones to what they perceived were their enemies on the other side. They were both killed, and there were two fathers who had lost a loved one in their life, and they, of course, as anyone would, went through a deep period of grief and a lot of pain and a lot of resentment and anger for the other side. But what ended up happening is that they ended up together in a support group. And in that support group, they became friends over how they could see their shared humanity and their shared grief and their shared loss, even though it was from the other side of the conflict. And again, this example, even though it's a little more heavier, but speaks to how we can see an example of two individuals who have been raised and brought up to really have negative emotions for the other side of a conflict that their region has been involved in. But when it comes to a few things in life that we must all go through, which is losing a loved one at the hands of, let's say, an enemy in that example, that we are able to sometimes even transcend an extreme example like the loss of a loved one because of an opposing side when we see that common humanity and shared grief in this example together. So these are just two different types of stories that we'd love to present in this module that really speaks to how we do ultimately have the power when we think of our common humanity and the shared values and desires and aspirations, and as well as things that will happen to everybody in their life, like grief and loss, and how we're able to connect over them, even though on the outset we might have so many differences amongst each other. And I would like to tie this back to something we spoke about earlier, which is that, of course, in all situations, this may not be possible, nor should it be. So I would like to really stress on how CBCT is not asking us to be friends with everyone or forgive everyone. It is simply asking us to be able to shift a perspective of being able to see every human being as a human being the way we see ourselves, as a first step to be able to expand that circle of concern. Whether we choose to act on that out of our compassion and expanding that circle of concern is, of course, up to us and our better judgment of what the situation really is. So those are just two examples that we wanted to share after the video because they do tie in so well with this concept of what meets the eye perhaps is not always really the case. And with that, I think we're going to go into an activity. But before we do, I just want to check in if there are any thoughts or questions on these two stories or concepts.
It was so beautifully explained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe if there are no questions, maybe we can go into the insight activity. And can you hear me all right? Yeah, I'm hoping you can. Good. I got worried when the video didn't work.
No, you're good. I'm going to go ahead and flip the slide then, Merida. Over to you.
Thank you. And in this insight activity, and it connects beautifully to everything that Anum has just explained, to the video we just seen, to the first activity. But this is just another way of looking further into and deepening into this expansion of our circle of concern. I'm going to ask you to get some pen and paper if you want, if that will make you help you in the reflection. And the idea is that to think for a moment about how we categorize people as we go about our lives. And what we realize is that most of us unconsciously see others in the following three categories. And this comes from the guidebook, but people I am close to, people I do not have strong feelings about, such as strangers, and people who bug me or whom I find difficult. Now, these groups can feel fixed. A loved one will always be close to us. We will always be indifferent to a person who we do not really know, and especially if they're difficult. But the idea is to consider whether these categories are really static. So I'm going to ask you all to take a moment to pause and reflect and find one from each of the categories. So think of, and maybe you want to write it down, someone who you feel you're close to, someone you may feel neutral about, and that could be somebody So, I mean, somebody close is a friend or a family, somebody we really care about. And people we might feel neutral to could be, if we take the bus every day, it could be the bus drivers and or the cashiers at the supermarkets, or people we cross on our day to day, but we know they're there. The person that helps us out at the petrol station, or those are kind of the neutrals, and there are a few of those. And finally, see someone who you actually find slightly annoying or difficult. No? And I'm sure everybody has one of those around. Maybe we did manage to get them out of our lives, but just for the purpose of this activity, I'll just give you a minute more to kind of jot down who these people can be. And remembering neutral does not mean we feel nothing for them. And the recommendation for those who we find slightly annoying or difficult, try not to pick someone who knocks you off balance emotionally, just regulating yourself as to how far you can go with that one. And then the second part of this activity is to identify or imagine something is going really well for them. For each one of those. For the person you feel close to, consider how they might feel as they experience this, and then consider how you feel as you think about or imagine them experiencing this. And then you'll move on when you're ready. You move on to considering how the neutral person feels about this. And then how you feel about this neutral person. I sometimes like to imagine the situation of somebody winning the lottery. If it's someone really close to me, how does that make me feel? If it's someone neutral, how do we feel? And if it's someone we don't really like, can you notice maybe how similar or different your feelings are? Yours. And now reflect on your common humanity. And in what ways do these individuals also have needs, goals, and dreams like yours? And in what ways do they have vulnerabilities, limitations, and imperfections? And how much do they share your deep desire to be well and avoid harm? Mm-hmm. Continue these activities on our own. They're all in the guidebook. Breakout rooms ready. Okay. Okay, so we'll now put you into breakout rooms, and the idea is that you just share with your colleague, with your friend, that last question of whatever insights this activity is on that common humanity. Thank you, Ed, for yeah. Okay.
Great. So we do have the breakouts ready. I know that Scott has to leave. So Scott, should we not put you in a breakout room then?
I think I'll be able to participate for a little bit. Thanks for checking in on me.
Great. Okay. So I think our rooms are good to go. And Merida, do we have an idea of how much time we're going to go with this time? Oh, we can't hear you, Merida. So perhaps we have groups of 3, and then we have, I think, one group of 2. So maybe we do 10 minutes? Is that what you're saying? Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, perfect. So we'll send you the prompts to let you know how much time. And for anybody who would like to have a look at the question, we have put it in the chat. So we hope you have a meaningful discussion. And as always, please feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So we'll see you back here in a few minutes. Is that everyone? Yes. Great. I think we have everybody back. Apologies if that felt rushed. I know that we had a few groups that had 3 people and some that had 2, but if anybody would like to share a quick reflection or any questions that you might have before we move on. Great. I think, Chuck, you had your hand raised first, and then we can go to Helen.
have to give a shout out to Marianne, who was in my group. She jumped immediately into the hardest person to deal with, and I thought that was brave. She really needed to be recognized for her bravery at that. I respected that.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, Marianne. Helen, we can hear from you.
Yeah, so I was having a reflection about a difficult person to hold compassion for. And I suppose the question around, I suppose I see that the compassion is held in the heart. So how we keep an open heart whilst also keeping maybe a boundary or some sort of accountability for someone's behavior, particularly where there's been a lot of harm caused through that behavior. So I was just wondering if the course kind of touches on that in terms of accountability, as well as, like how do we do it? The open heart and the sometimes saying no. So just that thought.
Thank you so much, Helen, for sharing that. I think you raise a very interesting point, and I think, again, this is my personal opinion. I think all of these skills and these tools that we're cultivating and putting into practice, they give us more agency to be able to create those boundaries. And I think for me personally, that's been one of the greatest takeaways of compassion-based education trainings like CBCT, is to have that understanding that creating those healthy boundaries are an act of self-compassion. And when I look into it from the lens of compassion for others, I do try to see that compassion for myself first. And I hope that that's a takeaway that you will also have. And I think if you look at the CBCT guidebook, there's always a set of informal practices that we will be touching upon towards the end of our session, which we're kind of nearing now, which will speak a little more about creating those boundaries, and also to remember that the idea of expanding our circle of concern, as we said earlier, is not always to make good with people that might not necessarily have that place, but just to be able to see that common humanity for them. And I think there might have been another hand raised, but then it was taken down.
I took it down just in case we need to move on. Do we have a second for reflection?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I noticed, of course, was when you're thinking about something good happening to, somebody who's difficult in your life. And I noticed, of course, some negative emotions coming up. And then when we got to the part about common humanity, like suddenly I was just like, oh man, I just don't have the energy to have any for that negative emotion. And I realized, I was like, man, negative emotions take up a lot of energy. What could I do with that energy if I put it somewhere else instead of spending time in negative emotion and being annoyed with other people? It's like, well, I could get a lot done, a lot more done.
Yeah, thank you. And just to piggyback a bit, but all of the past sessions that we've had were kind of giving us those tools that would help us self-regulate. And those moments of vulnerabilities are that becoming aware that not everything is nice and sweet and caring. No, so we have those. We do get angry. People do overstep their boundaries with us, and we know. And those are the things that when we start to observe ourselves, we realize, and we realize that they also bring up kind of the feelings come up as sensations in the body, as we did see, and I think Lydia mentioned as well. So that zone of resilience goes up and down all the time. And our idea is to kind of make that zone of resilience wider and able to handle and regulate different emotions and all these different emotions. And when we go beyond that zone of resilience to realize, and we realize that through our body, and it's our body that's going to let us know, I'm in a place I don't want to be. I can shift. because I have all these tools now. And that is the idea, is to go back to these tools to really embrace them and embody them as much as we possibly can. So we have a lot of regulating activities at the beginning, and we slowly kind of have to build up upon them. So we're going to be coming back to them all the time. They're ours to keep forever. And in the next two sessions, we are also going to be looking into precisely what can help us in that discernment of what we can handle and what we can't. And that discernment is also going to be critical. Everybody here will have a different level. We all do. We come in from different areas, different backgrounds. So it is important to understand that not everybody will be really advanced and capable and able to regulate. But we also have moments where we do get dysregulated, like I did this morning, like, having woken up from a nightmare that brought me into this situation, no? But I have those tools, and I'll go back to them, and I'll do my breathing, and I'll connect to my feelings, to my body, to being present, to being here, to finally there. Okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can't, and just take it step by step from there. So I think that's the kind of process we're looking into, and hoping that we're transmitting through all these activities that bring so much depth to the session. So thank you for sharing that, and I hope that was clear. But also, the rest of the session will also help clarify a little bit more of this. So I'll give some time to Anum and the final formal reflection as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for your reflections and insights. And I think our next concept actually ties in very well with this discussion. So I'll share my screen just for a quick bit. I'm not a fan of this picture, so I will take down my screen. I feel like this is a very intense picture, at least for me, that's the way I perceive it. But it is in the CBCT slide deck, and the concept we're looking at is distinguishing act from actor. And this is a really interesting concept when it comes to Module 6. And I think the best way to really unpack it is when we look to ourselves for hopefully a time in our life, and this might be something that we all share in common, is we might have been in a situation where we said something and someone took offense to it, and that was not our intention. And if we hold ourselves accountable or in reflection of that particular experience, most of us, I will not generalize, but most of us would like to be given some kind of a separation from what we said to what we were trying to say. And in the larger sense, that's where distinguishing act from actor can be a very helpful tool in expanding our circle of concern. So when we take that concept and apply it first to ourselves, of seeing that this is also something we share in common with so many people in the world, that there are many times where, of course, we act with intention, but there are times when we're acting with intention, but there are some factors of that are not in our control, and we end up saying something that we may not have thought would offend somebody, and immediately we have recognition of that. But we like to think that people will give us that benefit of doubt, as we say, in layman's words, or in other cultures, maybe there's a different way of expressing that. But that in itself is a wonderful concept of being able to expand that circle of concern when we apply that to others. That, okay, while I may not necessarily agree with you, or I might not even respect your views, but what I can do is I can distinguish the act that you've done from the person that you are. And again, this might not be applicable in all cases, maybe even sometimes in most, but it is a wonderful tool to be able to cultivate, really to expand that circle of concern sometimes, is just to see a situation as maybe not even a mistake, but there's a fine line sometimes between intention and how somebody may present themselves in a particular moment, or even a heated moment as such. So that's just one concept that we do like to share in this module. And I'll share my screen and skip this intense slide to the next one. And there is a wonderful book by France de Waal, which is quoted many times in CBCT. It's called The Age of Empathy. And if you're open to reading it, we would suggest ordering it. It's a fantastic book, but there's one quote in particular that really holds true to, I think, all of the conversation that we've had today and all of your wonderful insights, which is that identification is the primary portal to empathy. And so much of what we're speaking about today is identification. Of course, CBCT asks us to identify our own feelings, our emotional awareness, where we are in the zone of well-being. But when we look at it in terms of expanding that circle of concern and expanding our in-group and perhaps bringing down the barriers of our in-group bias, it is really identification that is opening that door to empathy. And we're going to go deeper into empathy in the next session and then tie that in with a larger sense of compassion. And I think with that, we're going to do a quick review of our enduring capabilities. So, Merida, I'm wondering if you want to quickly go through this before we go into our reflective practice.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. And so this has to be a very quick recap of what we hope you have learned. And remember, this is probably the first time you're taking this course. So we don't expect anybody to be masters of this. And we don't expect actually anybody, I don't think, I think not even the Dalai Lama is probably a complete expert in everything that we're learning. And these are, again, they're lifelong skills that we're going to be developing and deepening into more and more, and especially those of you who wish to continue into the teacher training course as well. So no worries, but please do go back to the guidebook whenever you need and try to do those activities and journal about everything that you might be going through at the moment. And so the enduring capabilities that we've been seeing are enhancing awareness of our unconscious biases, assumptions and judgments of others, connecting to others by making our similarities visible, expanding our in-group through awareness that everyone shares a fundamental desire to be well and avoid harm, increasing our capacity for acceptance, understanding, and forgiveness, and appreciating and respecting diversity and differences. And the idea, remember, this session specifically is about expanding our circle of concern, understanding that it's within our human nature to actually to experience all these things that we are experiencing. And it's not a matter of self-judgment, it's a matter of being aware that we do this and how we do this and how we can shift those perspectives. So when we do get stuck in a narrow viewpoint that is never challenged, we actually do lose the opportunity to learn and connect with others. And so by opening up, we have that possibility of connecting a bit further on. And I think it's going to be even more important that we skip the next slide, which is the informal practices we expect you to do this week. I'll just read the titles out, but do check on how you expand your circle and how useful it is to and not to, and create moments of connection if you can. Maybe with some of those people that were in that neutral area. It did help me go to the supermarket one day and see one of those faces that I've seen for years, and I hadn't actually really taken her into account. So I got into her line and ended up chatting. We've been in that area. She's been working at the supermarket exactly the same amount of time as I've been in Mexico. No? So there was something else we had in common, even though it's very, very slight. And just see others as they are. And it's not the same to be angry once, or no, that doesn't make me an angry person. No, so that is kind of the distinguishing we want you to see, that distinguishing the actor from the action. So no, somebody might be angry at some point. It doesn't necessarily mean they are angry people. That's my way of, so this person is worried. It doesn't mean they're always a worried person. No, there's a human behind all of that. that we can relate to and connect to. So without much more of an ado, we have 2 minutes, but we will have to go a bit beyond time. I'm sorry about that, but it was important to go through everything so you get a good grasp of what this is all about. So, Anu?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you, Merita. And we do only have 2 minutes left. So if anybody does have another commitment, please feel free to leave at time. And as always, you can watch the recording and do the practice through the CBCT app. We will try to shorten it just a bit to respect everyone's time. But if you'd like, you can turn off your video, just get into a comfortable position, and we'll guide you through the wonderful analytical meditation for Module 6. So let's allow ourselves to really settle into this present experience that we have been sharing with each other. We've had such deep and meaningful and fruitful conversation. So with that, maybe if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, please feel free to do so. If not, perhaps you can just lower your gaze. Take a few deep breaths to settle into this particular moment that we're sharing together. And maybe just one more deep breath before we get started. Okay. Now, when you're ready, we invite you to bring to mind a person from each of the following 3 categories: close ones, strangers, and those who annoy you. If you feel like this is an upsetting day, you can simply begin by just bringing to mind a close one. If you are feeling a little more comfortable, we invite you to include a stranger. And if you're feeling stronger than that, we invite you to bring to mind someone you find annoying or slightly difficult. And as you're bringing each person from the 3 categories to mind, attune to your feelings for them. Are you happy when things go well for them? Or do you feel concern when they are met with difficulty or setbacks? It is natural to feel differently toward those who are in our inner circle and those who are not. But excessive bias exaggerates the divide between us and others, often undermining our sense of community and feeding conflict. We invite you to take a few moments to recognize what you have in common with the people you have called to your mind. Are you able to see that as fellow human beings, perhaps they too must value being safe and having a meaningful life? And perhaps, just like you, they too must desire to avoid harm and suffering of all kinds. And just like you, they too have limitations and vulnerabilities along with their strengths. If you're beginning to see your shared humanity just a little more clearly, do you notice greater feelings of connection with the people you called to mind? Do they feel like a part of your inner circle? And do you notice a greater concern for their ups and downs? If not, we invite you to continue to reflect on what you might have in common with them. We invite you now to expand your circle of concern, gradually including more and more others in this reflection on our common humanity. Notice any accompanying feelings of connection or belonging and allow this to sink deeply into your heart and mind. And as you reflect on all that you share with others, also keep in mind the many real differences. Reflect on the immense value of cultivating respect and collaboration among people with diverse backgrounds, talents, and perspectives. And as we draw our practice to a close, we invite you to reflect on how beneficial it would be if we could connect more easily with others, sustaining awareness of our common humanity. We invite you to take a moment to dedicate your practice today to those you know to be in need of health and well-being. And as you are able, expand this dedication to include a widening circle of beings on this earth. And finally, we invite you to conclude by setting an intention to extend the skills and insights from this practice into everyday life. And whenever you're ready, we welcome you back into the room. Thank you, everyone. Our apologies that that was rushed. And for those of you who stayed over time, thank you so much. We hope that this was a fruitful session, and we look forward to seeing you for our second last session of CBCT. Time really flies.
It really does. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation. Have a lovely weekend.
Bye. Bye, Morgana. Nice to see
Bye
you.
bye. I'll think of you at full moon, Merida. I'm a bit
Yeah.
later than you. It's actually pitch black now, but have a good full moon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. That's Francoise as well.
Yeah.